Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. It's e-content project under the National Mission of Education through IT. I am Professor Seva Singh, retired as Head of the Department, Library and Information Science, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. Today, I am going to talk about the module User Studies and User Education. This module is under the paper Information Sources, Systems and Services. Dear students, we know that library comprises of three major components, namely documents, users, and library staff. This is in addition to the physical infrastructure which is developed in any library, including the building, furniture, and other equipments. Of all these, user is considered as the most important component of library because all the library activity they revolve around the users. Documents are required for the users, processed for the users, made available to the users, and the library services which are designed and developed with utmost care, they are also meant for the users to use. So all the valuable sources acquired in the library are meant for the user, and the sources which the library acquires must revolve around the needs of the users. They must fulfill the needs, the requirements, the wants of the users with regard to information on a particular topic, on a particular problem, on a particular research issue. To know the user requirements and their needs, it's incumbent upon the librarian to conduct user studies from time to time. The concept of user studies therefore becomes central to the concept of meeting the requirements of the users. The concept of user studies, of course, has been defined, discussed by different experts, different librarians, and information scientists based upon the library surveys they conducted from time to time. A user study can be considered as a systematic study of users' information needs. The user studies help to identify as to what the user require from the libraries. If properly conducted, user studies can reflect out, can mirror out their inner needs pertaining to various types of information required to meet with their demands as well as the problems arising from time to time. Keeping into view this background, some of the objectives of user studies are to examine patterns of library use and identify gaps in use, to evaluate the library resources in such a way as to know the strengths and weakness of these resources, to make selection of documents systematic, to introduce documentation and information services to meet their needs, to evolve resource sharing with other libraries in the neighborhood or beyond, in the country or even beyond, through networking system, so that whenever the host library is unable to meet with their needs, we could depend upon the resources of other libraries as well. We can have a number of reasons for conducting user studies. The librarian need to identify the levels and kinds of user needs. This is essential to make a justifiable selection of reading material in the library. To identify the priorities of users for library resources and services. To identify the actual strengths and weaknesses of library resources and services. This gives the opportunity to librarian to redesign, to re-strengthen his services and resources from time to time. To identify the limitations or problems which seem to discourage the use of the library. Library must try to remove the impediments coming in the way of use of the resources. To identify the level of involvement or participation of users in the library program. To improve the organization and planning of library services at both the local and national level, and to know about the future information needs of the users, so that a new direction could be given not only to collection building and their maintenance, but also to designing and developing new information services. Need for user studies could be highlighted by planning user studies in such a way that the problems of users, different users, various categories of users could be selected by the librarian from time to time and revolve the studies around those. Therefore, it's incumbent upon the librarian to know about the objectives for which the user studies need to be conducted. For proper planning of user studies, it's important that the librarian and information scientist gives an overview of the previous studies made in this area. You must know about the variables which could affect the user studies from time to time and try to associate, try to define the variables in the present context. The sample population is very important for the planning. To know about better results, the bigger the sample, the better it is. Collection of data from the user community, from the user population is again important, an important step in planning. Once the data is collected, analysis of the collected data becomes another significant step in planning, because the analysis would give us the directions in which to move ultimately to meet with the user needs. Next step in planning is that of presentation of data, which could be in various formats: tabulation form, or numerical presentation of data, or use of charts, pies, etc. can help in presenting the data in a proper manner. Report writing is probably the last step in planning a user study. Here, the final report is prepared, and it would generally include an overview of the study, including the title, the sample, etc., and the final findings of the user study, which is being undertaken by the librarian. To undertake a user study, librarian can adopt various methods which are available at his disposal, and one of the important methods is questionnaire method. Questionnaire method is a direct method of collecting data, whereby questionnaires are distributed among the user population. But it's very important that in this method, the questions which are framed in the questionnaire must be very simple, straightforward, clear, without any implication, so that better results are obtained from the users about their needs. There are many advantages of questionnaire method. If it is simple, so it is very convenient tool of data collection. But if the population is very large and dispersed geographically, this method is useful these days, particularly making use of the technology and sending the questionnaire through mail or the groups or the listservs, etc. Another method which librarian can follow is the interview method. Interview method is a direct method of collecting data from the user population, and it's easy to perform. You can directly interact with user. Even interaction by way of interview can be held in a smaller group as well. The response rate is usually high in interview method because it is quick to be used and can cover wide geographical area as well. Another important method is diary method, whereby the librarian can or the researcher can maintain a diary of all the records which he is taking into consideration. Yet another method which is followed in user studies is the observation method. The phenomena can be observed from a distance. Observation of user behavior can be undertaken by the librarian or library staff from time to time. How the user behaves while in the library, while searching the catalog, while going to the shelves, while taking out a book, while taking the notes, etc., or which area of subjects he or she is more interested in. So this type of observation made by the library staff from time to time obviously helps to know about their needs. One advantage of observation is that it is not biased like any other method. And yet another method could be analysis of library data. The data which is maintained in the library about various type of library activities, about various operations, functions which are performed in different sections of the library. If those records are analyzed, some good results about the user needs, information needs can be obtained. A simple analysis of circulation data in a library can give us very positive results in this context. Operations research is another method which is followed. It's the application of scientific method in management and administration of government, commercial or industrial systems, etc. And it is also followed in library and information system these days. It helps to undertake a research, interdisciplinary research also by the research teams, and know about the information needs of the users. There are some indirect methods also. One of them is citation analysis. This is considered important, whereby the citations which we have in various types of documents, the bibliographic citations appended to the article or a book or a report or any other document can be analyzed, can be studied, and it can provide us very useful data. Library records and its analysis is also an indirect method of user studies which are followed sometimes. There are some other methods also in addition to the methods explained to you. And one of the other methods could be the feedback or computer feedback. If we receive or go on receiving feedback from the users as to the information they get from the library and its satisfaction, to what extent they feel satisfied, that will help us to further ascertain the information needs and develop collections accordingly. Second method of this type is unconventional methods. Some of the unconventional methods which are used to know users' information requirements. This could be by making use of biographical or autobiographical and other accounts of library scholars as to what they have been really reading, what are their experiences about library uses or about the collections or about the services which are provided by the library from time to time. So these are some of the methods which are used or which could be used by the librarian while undertaking user studies. Analysis of data or data analysis, of course, is equally significant. It could be statistical analysis, it could be psychosocial analysis, it could be economic analysis, it could be semantic analysis of the data, and all of them, they would help the librarian to know about the user needs. In view of this, we must know about the implications of user studies for libraries. Whenever a librarian undertakes a user study, the basic objective is to strengthen not only the collection but also the services in order to meet the information requirements which go on changing from time to time. Therefore, the immediate implications of user studies for libraries could be in its collection development. So, in order to develop a balanced collection in the library, user studies are very, very important. Similarly, weeding out the documents which are either worn out or have diminished their utility or use by the users over a period of time. The user studies, if conducted, can be an eye-opener in this area as well. Similarly, allocation of resources for collection development in the libraries, how much resources could be considered as sufficient, how much resources proportionately be increased every year to meet with the user needs because they go on increasing. So, for preparing a library budget, a balanced library budget, a library budget which should be pro-users, user studies obviously they help the librarian greatly. Another implication of user studies is that librarian can initiate user-based information services. Once the user needs are known, once these are ascertained, once the data is tabulated and report is prepared, obviously librarian can either redesign the existing services, information services, or can initiate and develop new information services. New information products can also be designed and developed accordingly. And yet another implication is that there has to be an improvement of library techniques. And if we really look at the library techniques in its proper perspective, we do find that from time to time, library techniques, not only in the area of library organization of material, designing and developing of information services and products, it has really increased in every aspect. Even there has been improvement in human relations vis-a-vis the users. And now, realizing the significance of users and their needs, the library has also further improved its technique going towards marketing of information services and products so that more and more awareness about information resources and services is made among us the user groups with an eye on the optimum utilization of resources and services. But despite all this, we do find that there are some limitations of user studies as well. These limitations must be recognized, must be taken care of, so that the ultimate objectives of user studies are met with. But limitations do creep in user studies because sometimes the objectives are not properly determined by the investigators. The sampling techniques used by the investigators are invariably not flawless. Yet another limitation could be the size of the sample should be such as to reflect the entire population. It should not be biased. The composition of user population is equally important. While undertaking user studies, we must take into consideration the users with different subject backgrounds, with different intellectual levels, and so on. There are other variables also which become sometimes impediments in user studies. These includes age of the users. On the one hand, from the public library point of view, there could be children, school-going children. On the other hand, there will be a housewife or a retired person. The education of users, again, is another variable which should be taken care of. Experience of the users also helps or affect the information seeking behavior of users. Their behavior in the library while looking for information on a particular topic or a particular problem changes according to their educational level, socio-economic background, their experiences in the life, and so on. Yet another limitation of user study could be the statistical analysis methods. The methods selected by the investigators or the librarian may not be appropriate for the type of data collected. So it has to be taken care of that what is the type of data which is collected and what type of analysis method should be followed so that good results are obtained. A related concept is about user education. When we talk of users, user studies, their information needs, obviously user education automatically comes into the picture. Because if the users are properly educated, not in the formal education sense, but if they are made aware of whatever is available, then probably the user studies, the information needs of the users can be properly met with. So user education becomes a sort of instruction given to the users or the readers to help them to make best use of the library and the library resources. User education is described as any effort or program followed in the library which guides and instructs existing and potential users. User education is the process whereby potential users of information are made aware of the value of information in specialized fields of activities. So value of information, of course, is the key word here. In any specialized field, in any area of research interest, it is ultimately the value of information which is given due regard by the users from time to time. The objectives of user education obviously are to create an awareness and understanding of the basic relevant library and information sources and services, to bridge the gap between the potential user and the library collection, to enhance users' abilities to select appropriate information sources and systems for a given information need, to offer instruction in the effective and efficient use of the available library facilities and resources, to develop users' knowledge and skills to access or retrieve the information required, to help in the assessment of existing library and information resources and services. These objectives obviously will go a long way in making the resources and services of the library and bringing them to the notice of the users, existing as well as potential. The need for user education program is due to growth of information, and in recent years again, the growth has been enormous. it is very difficult to acquire all the information sources in the library. Therefore, there is all the more need for user education regarding various sources. Another point which needs attention is the non-use of library resources. So there are many occasions when the library resources which are so costly in terms of price, in terms of value added, in terms of staff time spent upon their processing, and if these resources remain unused or not put to an optimum use, obviously it's a matter of concern for the librarian and the library system as a whole. And another point which points out the implication of need for user education is the unfamiliarity of the user with the library system. Library system, although is designed and developed to help the user, but sometimes the same library system, particularly when the users are unfamiliar with the system as such, becomes an obstacle in the way of using the library resources freely, properly, adequately, and to the satisfaction of the users. There are various methods of user education which the librarian can follow from time to time. We take up one by one, and the first one is group instruction. When the users are there in a group, they could be in the library in a group. For example, if it's a college or university, the students of a particular class, students of a particular subject, they can come, they can visit the library, and the librarian or reference librarian can deliver a lecture to them about the library, library system, library facilities, library services, library resources, etc. In the lecture, one can also explain as to how to make use of the library resources to the utmost satisfaction of the users. Second method within the group could be in the form of seminar, tutorials, demonstrations. So either the library can conduct seminar or give tutorials to the students or give demos also, which would be useful to the users. And another important method here in this category is the guided tour. This guided tour of the library is considered very popular, important, and helpful as well, whereby the users are taken round the library. If the library is very large, they are shown different sections, the stack area, how the books are organized, how the books are issued from the circulation, how the documents are processed in the technical section, how the periodicals are organized in the periodical section, and how the user needs are met in the reference section. Another method is at the individual level, individual instruction, whereby practical exercise could be given to the individual user regarding various aspects of the library, or some self-instruction material could be given to the user. It could be in the form of tours or in the form of signs, etc. And individual help can be extended to the users regarding the use of the library resources either, or looking for some information from an array of sources, or consulting an encyclopedia, or looking for an idea into an indexing periodical, etc. Another method is clubbing together group and individual instruction. Here, the library can make use of films, videotapes, tape and slides, audio tape, printed media, where some printed guides, etc., can be brought out by the library from time to time, and users can be told about the library sources. From this user education, which has become quite important in the libraries all over the world, including India, now the librarians, they are moving towards what is called as information literacy. It is experienced, it is considered, it is realized that library users need specific type of training in the use of new reference sources, particularly electronic sources, the internal tools developed by the library, such as online public access catalog, etc. To meet with such a complex situation, this new term of information literacy was developed in the early 70s. So it is not as new as we sometimes consider, but obviously it is catching fancy, and information literacy is now has become a sort of buzzword. So information literacy aims at making a user capable to recognize when information is needed, how to locate it, how to evaluate it, and how to use it effectively to satisfy his information needs. So these days, we are moving towards information literacy as a concept. Libraries are following this concept and making the users literate about information sources, information containers, information services, information products, etc. from time to time, so that the ultimate objective of making the optimum use of the library sources is met with. So once this user education and other program is undertaken, it also needs to be further evaluated. Evaluation is a systematic, rigorous and meticulous application of scientific method to assess the design, implementation, improvement or outcome of a program. The primary purpose of evaluation is to find out the quality of program by formulating a judgment and use the analyze the results for rational decision making. We can sum up the module, dear students, whereby we have discussed the concept of user studies, the objectives of user studies. The module has discussed about the need for user studies. It has mentioned about various steps in planning a good user study, and it explains various methods to be followed in the library by the librarian or investigators for undertaking user studies. It explains the concept of user education, the concept of information literacy, the need for user education, describes the various methods of user education, and evaluation of various user education programs, because it's very important to evaluate the program so that some better results could be obtained, or in future the instrument of user studies or user education, etc., could be improved for the benefit of the user community as a whole. Thank you very much, dear students.